Thank you for staying with us on Fafanua Africa. We're talking about youth involvement in political issues and the issues concerning the world at large, and using the United Nations General Assembly as a case study. We're trying to decipher whether or not the youths are well represented at the global stage, such as the UNGA. And of course, like I said earlier, we have our guests, one all the way from Bulawayo, Zimbabwe, Tatenda, Kombora, Unika. Tatenda, thank you for joining us. We also have Gladman Chikwari, the coordinator of the YALI RLC chapter, also in Zimbabwe as well. Gladman, thank you. We also have Olugbenga George, a broadcast journalist in Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you, gentlemen and lady, for joining us. Now let's go straight to the conversation. Tatenda, I'm going to start with you. How involved would you say the youths are on the global stage, using the United Nations General Assembly as a case study?
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so it's interesting that we're at a time where the world, at the moment, has a population of over 7 billion people. 3 billion out of those people are youth. So the youth population across the world is about 3 billion people. Of course, we know that 1 billion of that is from Africa. So when we talk about the United Nations, the General Assembly that's currently going on, you want to look at how many people, where youth participation is concerned. I think I will speak as a Nigerian, as an African, and I think it's been the same old problems all the time, which is the fact that, you know, most youth always play the second fiddle role. We haven't come to that stage and that realization yet, where, you know, youth actually do have access to leadership at the global stage. Of course, the major roles that we have always played and continue to play has been the role of support, has been the role of appointees, which of course is a good way to start. But if we know that the youth, I mean the future is your youth, if we do agree and we do know that for sure, then I think we must begin to give youth more roles to play where governance generally is concerned. I take the Nigerian team, for example. The Nigerian president, you know, and his team, you look at that, I've tried to study, you know, all the people that actually made this company. I think, apart from the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs, who happened to be a little bit young, I wouldn't know how many more youth are in that company officially, you know, accompany the president and making presentations where youth is concerned. I'm also aware that other ministers and governors are in company of the president of Nigeria. But you look at how many of them are actually fall within the age bracket of youth that we continue to talk about. You realize that there's only a few of them, only very few of them. So there is still a whole lot to do where youth participation is concerned, and it should go beyond just appointing youth or just making them aides. Yes, it's a good way to start, but I think we still have a very long way to go.
All right, thank you for that, Olugbenga. Now, Gladman, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of times youths are either nonchalant or indifferent about these meetings and discussions and all that, because somehow they feel like it's either not, it doesn't concern them, or there's just no solution, and it's just a meeting that people attend annually. So now, how do we get these youths to be more interested in global conversations like this?
Thank you very much. Our problem as youth is we think that we are to influence the future, and we are youth for the future. That's what we think. We are leaders of tomorrow. That's what we have been told from since beginning of time. But we have to change the narrative, saying we are not youth for tomorrow. We are not leaders for tomorrow. We are the current leaders, because we are at the age where we can lead, we can have creative ideas in almost every sector. So we need to change the mindset of the youth ourselves. We need to realize that we have it in us, we have the potential, and our greatest fear is we think we are not experienced enough, we think we are not adequate. Taking a case study of Zimbabwe, we are constantly getting told that we are not competent enough to be in political leadership. Why? Because we did not see the war, the liberation struggle, we didn't participate in it. But looking at the matter closely, we can see that those that are in power, those that went to war, they went to war when they were 16, 17, or even some as young as 15. So we are at that age where we can say we can do it. So we need that push where we say we are not there for tomorrow, because who will lead now if we are supposed to be leading tomorrow?
Okay, thank you, Gladman, for that. Now, Tatenda, I would like for us to take a look at the General Assembly going on. It's looking like it's a divided meeting. You know, we see some youths quite all right, but it's like some of the youths are in a corner, and the others, the major people, so to say, are having the real conversations, like the world leaders and all that. Should it be so? Shouldn't the youths be lending their voices and also learning from these people?
Thank you very much for that question. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are, loud and clear.
Thank you. So maybe before I answer your question now, I'd like to first of all answer the question that you asked before, when you were asking in terms of young people seeming quite divided and really ignorant of political matters and issues. I hold a different view in that I really don't think that young people don't care about politics. I don't think that young people don't care about governance. I think that they do, but their experiences in politics and in governance is what has shaped what we call voter apathy. I think in one of my most recent articles, I talked about the fact how the relationship between young people and voting and other electoral processes is what we can equate to between the relationship of that a young person and their lover in a very abusive and toxic relationship, but with someone that you love. You want to be in a relationship with them, but because of the experiences and who that person is, they've forced you to fall out of love with them, and then you've chosen not to want to be there. But the love is still there, the yearning is still there. And to give an example of that, in Zimbabwe, we had our elections on the 23rd of August. And I so happened to be one of the people that were the election observers there. And what we saw was that you saw young people in WhatsApp groups, on social media. They were inviting and encouraging each other to be one of the first people to get to queues. And when I went to the station where I was observing, young people were there. Young people were the earliest to be there, and they were going and they wanted to cast their votes. So to say that young people are really ignorant of political issues, of governance issues, is really, I think, for me, a bit of a stretch. And looking now, coming to the question about what you're talking about in terms of the UN General Assembly currently happening right now, in that it seems as if young people are sort of like put in a corner, and then, there is the real conversations that are happening and taking place at a center stage where decisions are actually being made. This really just speaks to the tokenistic nature of politics and governance across the world, and it's seen and it manifests itself at a global stage. So what we see at the UN is a reflection, it's mirroring in what we see are happening in our different countries, or rather in most of our different countries, where young people are said to be there, to be a part of political processes, to be a part of governance, and they are said to be at this decision making platforms. But are they really at the decision making platforms? Are they really making change? It's quite interesting for me that when you look at statistics around the world, only less than 10% of young people are in parliament, and that's across the world at the global stage. And those young people that make it to cabinet. And so this shows you that, they say numbers don't lie. And in this case, they are not lying as well. When we see that young people aren't really in these cases. But I think the other challenge that we find when we look at these issues is that because of tokenism and because maybe in a parliament you can find one or two people that are young people, you can then say young people are there. It's the same thing that's happening at the UN right now, because there are few young people that were chosen and selected from across the world to be at that stage. We can then say young people were at the stage, but did they effectively contribute to the decisions that were made at the stage, at the platform? In most cases, you find that young people didn't, and really that's the conversation that we're supposed to be having. We want equal and effective youth participation, and not the tokenistic nature that we've seen at a global level, and even most importantly in our own individual countries.
All right, thank you so much for that. Because of our time, we will not be able to go further than this, but I want to thank you, gentlemen and lady, for your input on this matter. Thank you so much, Tatenda, Gladman, and of course, Olugbenga. We hope to see you again on the show some other time. Well, this has been a very interesting episode of Fafanua Africa. The involvement of youth in the United Nations General Assembly was discussed, and of course, the rights of the youths was also generally discussed. And if I were you, I would take into cognizance these things that they mentioned, so that as time goes on, you would know what to do when you're faced with certain situations. I'm Blessings Mosugu. Join us again next week, same time, on the same program for Fafanua Africa, as we bring you insight into what the youths can do and, of course, the solutions they're faced with. Thank you so much for watching. See you again.